Call the meeting of the Land Use and Transportation Committee to order. And our first...
Recording in progress.
Now we're official because we're being recorded. So we are called to order. Our first item of business will be public comment. If anybody has public comment, I think we have some pink sheets that you brought.
You have a couple public comments in person. You also have one that was emailed to you. You should
Okay.
have in your email as well.
So we will ask for public comment. You have, when you come up to the podium, state your name, what city you live in, and you'll see the green light start, and you have until the red, which is 3 minutes.
So the first one I have here is Steve Skipper.
Steve Skipper.
He's there.
There you are.
Yeah, good
Hey,
one.
Mr. Skipper, you're up.
And I live in Regency Woods, and I'm here to comment on an item that's not on the agenda. The cut-through, I think y'all are familiar with. We received a proposal from the city for the new subdivision on the other side of us on Milton Road. And it looks good, except for one little problem. The road cuts through into our subdivision right next to a tiny tot lot. We have no problem with the subdivision. We have the problem with that road coming right next to our tiny tot lot, which is a 20-mile-an-hour zone, by the way. And it doesn't make any sense for us and that neighborhood. The egress and entrances to the new neighborhood show, I think Mark gave you a copy of the actual proposal, actually shows at least 3 different entrances and outlets to that subdivision. And the last thing I want to do is stop progress, but I think that the city council, the land use committee, should ask the public works director or the mayor, say we're all for this, but the director has the ability and the mayor has the ability to waive that particular cut through there because of 2 different things, a safety issue, and it goes right next to a wetlands area too. Those 2 things should be enough for the mayor to waive that cut through. And you'll make a lot of people happy, at least 260 of them that I know of, because I think you still have the petition there. Thank you.
And our next person is?
Your next person is Mark Spauer.
Mark Shaw.
Hi, I'm Mark Spohr. I live in Regency Woods as well here in Federal Way. In April, I attended the meeting here and we presented that petition with 260 signatures, and we were told that a traffic study must be done and that it would be done in July. And so I'm hoping the traffic study is reported to you on whether this road is needed. My main concern really is that they've asked that they change the comprehensive master plan to eliminate this connection, but that won't happen until next year. But this plat that's before you must be approved before the comprehensive master plan is changed next year. So we've been bringing up this problem since 2019, and I feel that the delays that have gone on here are making it so this connection between the Milton Road and Regency Woods is going to happen because of delays in planning. So the Federal Way Code 19.135.070 says exceptions can be made to development rules by the Public Works Director if the improvements as required would not be harmonious with the existing street improvements, would not function properly or safely, and would not be advantageous to the neighborhood as a city whole. Well, this is going to be a safety issue for us next to our lot. This is an environmental issue against a federally designated wetland. I believe that we can ask for this connection to be eliminated based on those 2 things, and they would be proper in our code. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment other than it was sent electronically?
Yeah, that was the only other one.
What's that? Hey, Desiree, do you have any information that's an update on what we have here? Is anything coming forward to us on this cut-through or discussion? Do you know?
Right now, the report is, an analysis is still in progress. We have not received it to date.
Okay. Okay, so thank you for coming forward. As you can see, we haven't got the report yet, and it's always good to keep it on the front burner. Thank you. Thank you. So we will now move to committee business, and Councilman Trump, do you have a motion?
Go ahead, yeah. Mr. Chair, I would like to make a motion to move item F to go right after item A.
I second the motion. I second the motion.
So we have a motion to move an agenda item F, to follow item A. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you. We'll now move to our agenda here. Item A is approval of the minutes.
I motion that we approve the minutes for the last
July 11th.
July 11th meeting.
I'll second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, now we'll go to item F, which is a presentation and hopefully a decision on school impact fees. Item F, Mr. Nivens, you're up. And I see that we're joined by Councilmember Kochmar, and I think I saw Lydia on there, so welcome.
Thank you. I also see Erica's name here.
Okay, well, thank you all for, if you have questions, please remember to raise your hand so we can make sure that you get your questions.
Thank you. Can I make a comment? It's hard to hear you guys for some reason,
Hard to hear.
especially Councilmember Tran.
Maybe it's because his green button's not on.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Good evening, Chair Dovey, committee members, and council members joining us remotely. Keith Niven, Planning Manager. And this evening, we're going to continue our conversation about school impact fees, which we started last month. The background, let me see if I can move our friends here. A little, oops, sorry. So background, staff presented background information to the Land Use and Transportation Committee regarding school impact fees on the 11th of July, which was this committee's last meeting. Number two, staff received the 2023 Capital Facilities Plan from the school district on the 19th of July. And the 2023 Capital Facilities Plan is calling for a significant change to the school impact fees. So that's the background information. The policy question in front of the City Council is, should the City Council amend the school impact fees to be in alignment with the 2023 School District Capital Facility Plan? Okay. So what that plan says is basically recommending that the school impact fees for the plan year go to zero from where they are right now. And the amendment to the city's fee schedule would ultimately look like this if it's approved by the City Council, taking all the impact fees to zero. There are options in front of the City Council. The first option is to amend the school impact fees to be consistent as soon as possible with the 2023 Capital Facility Plan. The second is to amend the school impact fees following an evaluation of the findings prepared by the consultant currently reviewing school impact fees on behalf of the city. And to give you a little bit of reminder on that, we got a grant from the Washington Department of Commerce to look at the barriers for our housing production. And we have hired Heartland to basically evaluate our density bonus program, our multifamily tax exemption program, our inclusionary program, and school impact fees. And so they've been working on that, and we'll likely have that study done by the end of the year. So if you chose option 2, we would basically not do anything until we got that study from our consultant towards the end of the year. And then number 3 is do not amend the fees and provide additional direction to staff. And the mayor's recommendation is number 1, to basically right now, or as soon as possible, amend the school impact fees. And with that, I am done, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have, but I know the school district has a presentation, and I don't know if you would rather hear their presentation next and then maybe have questions kind of jointly. Your choice.
Let's bring up the school district if they have a presentation next, and then we can have questions, if that would work for you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
You want me to try and get you to the right place here?
That would be fantastic.
I am just the person to do that. You are school.
While you're
district
looking that up,
presentation.
it's great to have school district.
Yeah, welcome.
Folks over here. Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Share screen, that's you.
You're doing all the hard work there.
You know, you can teach, maybe, I know. So now see your application.
First promise when you need it.
Slideshow.
I think we have somebody in the back room.
I almost had it. There we go.
There we
There
go.
we go.
Okay, I'm gonna now sit down.
And where's my clicker? Which one?
The mouse,
Just the
or
mouse.
you can hit return. I believe
Got it.
either one will work
Okay.
for you.
Thank you so much. Council members, my name is Michael Swartz. I'm the Executive Director of Capital Projects, and I'm here with,
Ty Bergstrom. I am the new interim chief financial officer for the district.
Welcome.
and we just have a quick presentation. And what we kind of wanted to do is just share the background of our school impact fees and our capital plan, describe some school impact fee components, share our impact fee history, and a little bit about multifamily housing and the spike that we've seen, a little bit about our collaboration over the years, and then we have a district request to support the plan. So with that, some of this is information that I'm sure you already know, that school impact fees are a one-time payment by developers to mitigate or offset for new developments, the impacts. Schools, the impact is increased the need for new classrooms to serve scholars. And that's kind of a key, is that the impact fees really impact, therefore, use by scholars to serve unhoused scholars when we have a spike. The fees can't be used for hiring teachers or any additional school buses or any of those other kinds of things. And they're just for creating new classroom space. And sometimes that's through portables, sometimes it's through remodeling of existing spaces at schools, and so on. Calculated annually by the district utilizing the same formula, student generation rates for single-family and multifamily housing, costs, land costs, school construction costs, new capacity only, again, reiterating that, and temporary facility costs. There are credits involved, school construction assistant funding and bond tax rates, and then a local taxpayer share discount that you can see there. Please chime in as
No,
you
you're
need
doing
to. The impact fees are adopted by each jurisdiction, and for us, we present our capital plan to both the City of Federal Way, City of Auburn, City of Kent, and the King County Council on a yearly basis. This one's interesting, intended to kind of show the spike. The yellow represents single family and the blue represents multifamily from 2012. And you can see that there was a spike in a lot of multifamily construction, multifamily housing, which represented a lot of increased scholars for Federal Way Public Schools. And you can see that there's a little dip now that's been going in through 2022. Yes.
I just want to chime in really quick and talk a little bit about what goes into the rates and the generations. So one of the most important factors in the impact fee calculation is the student generation rate. And that's really driven by where the students are housed in terms of multifamily residences or single-family residences. And as the number of multifamily residences has increased within the district's boundaries, the larger number of students has been driven into those housing developments, meaning that they represent the largest proportional share of our new students. So that factor drives the proportionate cost up. And that's why you were seeing the spike in multifamily and the drop in single family. And then the next one is a comparative between Federal Way's multifamily rate and other multifamily rates within some of the larger districts within the region. And if we take a look at their student generation rates, where their students are coming from, for these other districts, they're coming more from single-family homes than they are from multifamily homes. And so that's why Federal Way is such a unique creature in terms of our multifamily rate and our student generation rates, is because we have such a large share of our student growth housed in multifamily projects. So
That's great. Again, I think this is some of the same information. Almost 2/3 of these scholars are new to the district. Things that we've done with that spike, we've changed boundaries at 4 elementary schools, created new capacity in the district by adding 8 portable classrooms, remodeling 6 additional classrooms, and all of the impact fees in the total at that time equaled about $5.1 million. And remember, there is no state funding to accommodate growth without a voter authorized bond. So these fees are a way that the district is able to account for and support more scholars as they come into the schools. Tax implications. This one I'm going to let Ty go through. We talked about it a little bit, but in Federal Way, as you well know, taxpayers pay more for each $1 million of tax revenue to create new capacity for schools. And is there
So in terms of looking at tax revenues, it's more about what the assessed value of the district is. A Federal Way has a different assessed value than another district, and so if we're going out for if we went out for the exact same dollar amount, the proportional share per assessed value of a homeowner in Federal Way would be higher than from another district, because our assessed value is lower. And so as we're looking at the changes in assessed value and changes in other factors, as we're going out for new bond issues, that taxpayer cost is going to be significantly different here than elsewhere.
So this is kind of my area. The 2017 bond provided authorization to rebuild and increase capacity. So as you all know, right now we're on our 7th project. One's in the works, and we have some more in design currently. So we have fewer students who we need to serve in other capacities. We built these new schools with an increased capacity to support increase in scholar enrollment. There's also been a temporary enrollment impact created by the pandemic and some scholars leaving schools for temporarily, hopefully. So we have no unhoused students currently at this time. We're able to support, and in the 2023, support the scholars with the buildings and the rooms, spaces that we have. Oops. One thing we wanted to talk about is our ongoing collaboration with the city. We've modified the cost of new capacity calculations, supported 50% school impact fee for reduction in the city's core, supported a mid-year change, and supported the multifamily tiered fee implemented recently. And then here's our kind of final statement. Of course, we're here on behalf of Superintendent Dr. Danny Pfeiffer. We do not object to the City of Federal Way adopting school impact fees outside of the budget cycle. The district does believe that school impact fees play an important role in supporting commitments to taxpayers and for providing adequate classroom space to support scholars. And we look forward to continuing this conversation and continuing the work together.
Okay, I'm sure there's a few questions. Does anyone on the dais have a question as of yet? So I guess I'll ask the first questions. Looking at your presentation from the school board, it appears that the bonds that were passed by this people of Federal Way was enough money to continue to build new schools, which are great, and enough capacity right now, so there is no need to get impact fees. Is that correct? Is that my understanding from your presentation today?
That coupled with some enrollment decreases that we believe are pandemic issues.
Right. So if the impact fees if we vote on the impact fees to go down to zero effective now, it's not going to impact the school district at all today, correct?
At this point.
Yeah, at this point, that would be our hope,
Okay.
definitely.
And then if something changes, if more people move in, you'll come back to us and, we'll be able to decide or discuss impact fees again. But if we make this change, it's not going to be an issue for the school district at all, based on your forward thinking on the bonds to build new buildings, the pandemic of students going away or homeschooling or doing something different, and the capacity is not going to affect the school district at all.
For our 2023
Yeah.
capital plan, yes.
And if things change in 2024, you'll come to us and we'll be able to have that discussion.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Do I see any, yes, Councilor Tron?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to say thank you to both of you for being here. This is really a positive direction, and this will make our city more competitive in terms of attracting more developers to come in and build more houses in the city. So thank you.
Yeah, I just like to say thank you as well. And I kind of suspect that some of the students who are going to online learning, it increased a lot because of the pandemic, but I suspect that it will not, that there will be maintaining a greater number than before the pandemic as well, I would suspect. Have you done any calculations on that or prognostication?
At this point, I don't have that information. I'm still new in the role, but
All right.
We do believe that it is a new trend that we have online students. I believe that we are looking to get more students back into the classroom as possible. We've put a significant amount of effort into reaching out to the community in every way, shape, and form that we can to get our students back. There is a lot of benefit to being in a classroom with your peers, with the instructor, than there is online. For some students, it works great. For some families, it works great. But we believe that having students in the classroom is the best way to provide that instruction. And so we are making as much of a concerted effort as we can to get them back into the buildings.
Great. And thank you for calling them students rather than scholars. I'm tired of the scholar stuff. I mean, some of them are scholars, but a lot are simply students.
I do have one more question. We go through the process. This is going to have to pass out a land use. It's going to go to the city council to vote. If it becomes effective, it's not going to be detrimental to the school district if we make it effective immediately. I mean, it's not anything that's being built right now or being collected, so for the rest of the year, it's not going to affect you if we make it immediately, starting right now in 2022.
I think that's our hope. I think, speaking with our person working with us, Sally McLean, who
Yeah,
you might
I know
well
Sally well. She's a great lady.
Yeah.
Smart lady.
Believes that to be the case and has some wonderings about some things that might be in the hopper. But I believe we're willing to, understand that this might be something that is effective immediately.
Okay.
For the 2023 capital plan, for sure, we fully expect that we will see an increased enrollment in the near future. And so are hoping that this is not a permanent decision and that we will be back having the conversation and continuing the conversation for the 2024 capital plan and the impact fees associated with it.
Yeah. And just to make a comment, You know, the main reason, in my opinion, are looking at this, and hopefully it moves forward, is we have to be competitive with the development in our downtown with Sound Transit coming, the properties that are going to come up for housing, and because we have, 11,000 or whatever the number is, Keith, of new dwelling units we have to bring in. And right now, we're not competitive with our neighboring cities. We've missed out on many of the wave of new development in Federal Way. And I understand that we need to be able to support our students and our schools and grow them so that they have places to go. But right now, we have to do what we have to do to make Federal Way competitive in the Puget Sound, South Puget Sound, so the developers say, hey, we want to look at Federal Way. That doesn't mean they're going to do it, but we need to at least give them every opportunity to. So I really appreciate your presentation. It's very, very, very good. And I want to comment on the schools I've seen that have been rebuilt. You've done a great job.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
It's really good. Any other questions from any of the council members that are out online?
Yes, I've raised my hand.
Oh, there it is. Well, it was hidden. There, go ahead, Lydia. You're up.
Thank you so much, Chair. Thank you for the presentation. I do have two questions. One is, you said there was 4 schools where the boundary was changed. What schools are they? That was part of the slideshow.
Well, I can tell you 2 of them for sure, because I was the principal at one of them when it happened. It was Mirror Lake and Wildwood there were some adjustments made.
Okay.
I'll have to get back to you on the other 2.
Okay, great. Okay. My other question is, Chair, there was a letter, public comment maybe from Robin Korak from Multi-Service Center. And this is in relation to the Redondo Heights that they're building. And one of the things they said, they were in support of the waiver of the school impact fees, but also they were requesting that the waiver be be effective September, so they don't lose some of the funding, or they don't lose. I think they are closing in on the property. But I think if the waiver waits till if it becomes effective, my understanding, in January, per our city, what is it called, per our city policy, then they may lose out on some of the funding and or increase on the project. So I don't know if that's something we need to discuss here, but they were asking that it be implemented effective September 1st, and that was in her email today. So.
Yes, thank you, Lydia. We'll have Mr. Davis comment on that. The intent is to have this become immediately after it passes, assuming it passes through land use and council, but.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's proposed to become effective upon the council vote, which is scheduled for your August 9th council meeting.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, any other questions?
I have a question for Keith. Hey, with the study that the consultant's doing on everything, are other impact fees being explored as well, traffic impact fees, whatever other impact fees there may be? In fact, I think it'd be interesting to find out what other impact fees there are. Are there others besides school and traffic?
So right now, the only other impact fee we charge is traffic. We are talking about park impact fee. There's a study that's just getting underway to look at that, but that's more of a replacement for what we require now, which is requiring each development to provide a certain amount of land for open space, and you end up with a bunch of kind of separated and discontinuous little spaces which really don't provide a good recreational benefit. So I think when we come forward with that proposal, it's going to be based on making things better and getting a better result, and not just a new fee to be enacted. So right now, we don't charge a fire impact fee. We don't charge a park impact fee. We don't charge police or general government mitigation fees. It's just school and traffic.
Okay. And will the study be looking at how our traffic impact fees compare with other municipalities and things?
Yeah, so the purpose for the study, just to unpack that just a brief bit more, is that as the representatives from the school district said, Federal Way actually generated less housing comparatively to other South King County cities over the last kind of planning cycle. And that was something that our housing action plan identified. And so one of the things and the reasons why we asked Commerce for a grant was to study what's keeping Federal Way from generating more housing than we have been in the past. And so it's looking at all those barriers and recommending hopefully to the council on ways that we can kind of either get rid of those barriers or reduce them to increase our housing production.
And with that, not just with housing, but with, I think that the traffic impact fees are applied to commercial properties as well. And is that a barrier to further commercial development? Because that's where a lot of the tax base is.
So I see Mr. Perez getting really close and looking like he wants to talk about traffic impact fees. I think what I would tell you is yes, traffic impact fees are applied across all land uses. And my expectation, because they're based on a uniform traffic generation manual that everybody uses, it should be comparable to the rest of the cities. But I will step aside and let Mr. Perez say a few words.
Thank you.
For the record, Rick Perez, City Traffic Engineer. It's been 2 years since we did the last rate study for the traffic impact fee. And actually, the increase was about 85%. It was pretty significant. The fact of the matter is we were much further behind what most other cities were charging. And yet we have almost $2 billion worth of need. And so the decision was made at that point to get a little bit closer to what the average was to generate the revenue. So currently we're charging about $6,700 per trip, per evening peak hour trip, which is pretty consistent, and it's about half what the highest in King County is, which is Sammamish at about 14,000, 15,000. So we think is reasonable, not necessarily a constraint, and I'll channel someone I know very well that's worked both public and private sectors that says basically in the grand scheme of things that it's a public perception that high impact fees will negatively impact development opportunities. From his perspective at least, it's really budget dust for the developer. It really isn't that significant a driver. If they want to be in Federal Way, they will come to Federal Way. If they want to be in Kent instead, they'll go to Kent. And I'll also mention that Kent increased their impact fees significantly. I think they're up to about $11,000 per trip. So I think we're fairly competitive, especially given the size of our needs.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Perez. Well, now that we've asked the questions, I don't see any more. And we will, I know that Councilmember Walsh would like to talk about fees later on as we go forward. We've heard about park fees, we've heard about traffic fees. Those are all on the table to be looking at as we move forward. Right now, we're going to make a decision, hopefully, on school impact fees. Do we have a motion that someone would like to make?
Chair Dovey, I move to forward the proposed resolution to make the school impact fees consistent with the 2023 FWPS Capital Facility Plan to the August 9th, 2022 business agenda for approval.
I second it.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, it passes. Thank you. Push the green button. Thank you very much for taking the time and coming down and presenting to us. I appreciate it. Okay, now we'll move to item B, which is 2022 Storm Pipe Repair Project Bid Award. And thank you for being patient for having us move our agenda around a little bit. Omar, right?
That's correct.
You're welcome, you're up, and we're looking forward to hearing what you have to present to us. Thank you.
Let's see if I can figure out how to do this again. It's only been a short month. 6 years of schooling, you think I could figure this out a little bit faster than what I have been able to do now. This one. Okay, committee members, Mr. Chair, my name is Omar Barone. I'm a senior capital engineer for the City of Federal Way. I'm here seeking approval to authorize the award for the 2022 storm pipe repair project to the lowest responsible bidder. You might remember that we originally came with this project some time ago, and we had to rebid it. We only received one bid at that time. It was very expensive. So we went back and looked at the project, and actually we were able to repackage it. So we have 3 different schedules. We have Schedule A would be our base, our highest priority sites. We have Schedule B, which are also pretty high priority. So between those 2 schedules are the ones that we really do not want to winter over. And then we packaged Schedule C into sites that can wait until next year. So we really looked at them that way. And so the primary purpose of this project is maintenance. So the policy question before you is, should the council award the 2022 storm pipe repair project to the lowest responsible bidder? For background information, we received 2 bids. We opened those on July 14th. Based on available funding, staff recommends the award of base Schedule A and additive B. So both of those schedules represent our highest priority sites. The lowest responsive bid of $310,663 was submitted by Road Construction Northwest Incorporated, and they're based out of Renton. For our available funding, we have swim user fees in the amount of $317,000. We're also requesting authorization to transfer from the swim small CIP fund $100,000 for a total of $417,000. For estimated expenditures, we're looking at $29,000 in design, $310,663 in construction cost, construction contingency of $31,066 with 30 cents, and construction management and inspection of $43,000 for a total of $413,729 and 30 cents. As far as options considered, we have that first option really has 4 components to it. Award the 2022 storm pipe repair project to Road Construction Northwest in the amount of $310,663. Approve a contingency of $31,066 with 30 cents for a maximum contract amount of $341,729 with 30 cents. Authorize the transfer of $100,000 from the SWIM small CIP project, that's project 34211, to our current project 34288, and authorize the mayor to execute the contract. Or option 2 would be to reject all bids, direct staff to rebid the project, and return to you for further authorization or further action. The mayor's recommendation is option 1, to forward that to the August 9th, 2022 City Council consent agenda. If you have questions, I'm ready to answer.
Councilmember Walsh?
Yeah. Can you go back a couple of slides?
Sure.
Yeah. Just for my own education, with the transferring of funds, from the SWIM small CIP project, what does CIP mean, and what is the project that is being transferred from?
So CIP is the capital improvement plan.
Okay.
So those are just smaller projects. Essentially, we have money set aside to handle smaller swim-related projects. So it's essentially from one swim pot of money to another.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is that project 34211, is that a specific project, or is it that's not going to be done now, or what is that?
I don't believe we had anything programmed for that. Did we, Desiree? I didn't have anything.
No, it's an annual set-aside of
Okay.
$150,000 that we utilize for projects that come up. And since this last year, we didn't have anything specifically identified, we felt that being able to accomplish another schedule of
Okay.
pipe repair would be the best use of those funds.
All right, thank you. Thank you, I just wanted to understand more fully what we were doing.
Can I ask one follow-up question to Councilmember Walsh? We're transferring the $100,000 because these bids came in higher than we expected due to inflation and due to different things. Is that what's really happening?
Well, generally, what we try to do is kind of over-design for this project because we have many more needs than we have budget.
Understand.
So as Mr. Barone shared, that we packaged it so that the base bid was our highest priority, most critical need. And then if bids come in favorably, we will continue to award and complete work.
Well, I guess my question was not that it's about the money. I'm just saying, are we seeing, like everybody else, this is part of cost increases? I mean, you prioritize and we move the money over because we want to get it done. But last year, if we'd done this, it probably would have been a little bit less, I'm guessing. Is that-
Yes, we definitely are seeing price increases just across the board, especially, you know, with material procurement in terms of pipe, you know, those types of things too. So we're really having to pay attention to the types of pipe that we spec out as well.
Okay.
Just because we're seeing such long lead times. It seems like all the backlog with lumber now is starting to kind of carry through to everything else, including baby formula. So now we're seeing it in the things that we do as well, so.
Okay. I see a question there for Councilmember Lydia.
Yeah, it's a general question. When we have two bids, and if neither of them were a good fit, could you have gone out for another bid, or do we usually just stop at that, or if we only have one bid?
So if we had bid the project and only received one bid,
One response.
yeah, well, so we are required to advertise, so as long as we had met the minimum advertisement period for the project, if we just did receive one bid and it was within budget, you could award to that one bidder.
Okay,
Yeah.
but you could also go out if the bid is not up to the expectation of the city, correct?
Yes, and that's actually what we did
Okay.
last time, yep.
Yeah, I think I remember
Yeah.
that, but I just wanted
Yeah.
to have a better understanding. Thank you so much.
Yeah, this came to the committee once before and it went back out, so
Yeah.
there's a good example of good stewardship by our department. Okay, is there a motion or any other questions?
Yeah, I move to forward option 1 to the August 9, 2022 consent agenda for approval.
Second?
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Now we'll move to item C, which is 27th Avenue Southwest at Southwest 344th Street Compact Roundabout 30% Design Report.
Once again, Omar Barone,
Thank
Senior
you.
Capital Engineer with the City of Federal Way, here to provide you with a staff report and update to the 30% design level for the compact roundabout proposed at 27th Ave Southwest at Southwest 344th Street. The primary purpose of this project is safety. That's really our end goal, is to increase safety here. So you can see our vicinity map and kind of orient yourself. 21st Avenue runs north to south, or south to north. You head westward on 344th, and you'd eventually run into the intersection there of 344th and 27th. So the policy question before you is, should the council authorize staff to proceed with design of the 27th Ave Southwest at Southwest 344th Street compact roundabout and return to LUTC and council with further reports? So this project will increase safety at this intersection by controlling vehicle speeds, by constructing ADA compliant sidewalk ramps, by connecting to existing neighborhood sidewalks that run north-south and west-to-east away from the intersection, and by adding street lighting to each corner. So this is the existing condition. This is the way that you see it today. So Southwest 344th Street runs east to west. 344th has the right-of-way, and you have 27th Avenue running north to south. They are stop controlled. So they come to the intersection, they have to wait to make sure that the coast is clear, and then they can pull out on a 344th and go east to west. So this is what we're proposing with the compact roundabout. You can see we have a 20-foot clear, wide lane for circulating. We have run the bus turning template, the custom one for our particular school district, to make sure that it clears the circulation within this roundabout. And one of the nice features about roundabouts is you can tell how it pulls the crosswalks away from the circulating area. So the vehicle, as it approaches, would be forced to acknowledge a pedestrian, allow them to cross safely before they enter in to the roundabout. And overall, what we see with roundabouts is a reduction in T-bone accidents. And since vehicles are traveling much slower, you get to what I call more like the soft side swipe. So really the severity of the accidents that you see, even though they are infrequent, they are less severe. Progress to date on this project, for completed tasks, we have topographic survey has been completed, the turning analysis is complete, and the horizontal layout has been completed, so the project is sitting at the 30% level. Ongoing tasks include preliminary project contract specifications, pushing the design to 85%, and environmental document approval. For available funding, we have the 2020 City Safety Grant. That's a federal grant in the amount of $710,000, and we have a $15,000 match set aside from our local REIT funds for a total available funding of $725,000. Estimated expenditures, we have $170,000 in design cost, $690,000 in construction, a contingency of $103,000, and construction management and inspection of $107,000 for a total of $1,070,000. So we're looking at about a $300,000 difference there. However, we feel that between now and 85%, we'll be able to refine those costs. We've already identified some areas in which we can simplify, reusing some of the existing storm system, simplifying the street lighting as proposed. So we think we're going to be able to make up some of that difference. So options considered, the first one would be to authorize staff to proceed with design of the 27th Ave at Southwest 344th compact roundabout and return to LUTC and council at 85% design completion for further reports and authorization, or do not authorize staff to proceed with design and provide direction to staff. The mayor's recommendation is to forward option 1 to the August 9th City Council consent agenda for approval. So if you have questions, I'm available.
Any questions? Yes, Councilmember Walsh?
Yeah. Have there been accidents there?
What's that?
Have there been accidents there?
Yes, we have a crash history there, accident history, and I believe we have one fatal
Oh, really?
at the intersection
Okay.
as well. Yes.
All right.
So yeah, that's one of the primary drivers for this project.
Okay. And on the budget, I noticed that it seems like that most of the time there's a 10% contingency. On this one,
Yes.
there's a 15% contingency. What is the reason for that higher contingency?
That's actually one of the other areas of potential cost savings that I was looking at, because we do typically run with the 10% contingency, so this is definitely a project we need to look at, and we can assess our risk and see if we can lower that.
So why was it placed at 15% to begin with?
Hi, Christine Mullen, Engineering Manager. A lot of times at the 30% design of our projects, we have a higher contingency just because we haven't worked out all the specifics of the design. So
Okay.
it just gives us a little bit more cushion as we're refining everything.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
I do have one question on the map that you showed at the very beginning. It's a four-way stop or a four-way right there.
This one?
So when we put a roundabout in, are we going to be taking any of those yards, or are we going to be, moving some of the trees that I see on there? Or does it fit right into that intersection?
It's gonna fit within existing right-of-way. You can see these lines, I'm not sure if my cursor is showing up for you there,
Okay.
but yeah, that dashed line would be the existing right-of-way line. You can see a little bit of impact here to the shrubs. That's one of the things I was looking at with the turning movement, just looking at what the consultant put together. I think they can pull this curb line in. Potentially, we can suck in the back of the sidewalk to reduce that, but other than that, I didn't see any other impact to landscaping, potentially maybe a little bit down here. But it's all gonna fit within our existing right-of-way.
Okay. The only comment I'd make is when you have the visual picture before and then you go to the drawing with the roundabout, and I don't know if it's technically possible, but if you could put them over the top, then that helps with the question, because that question will always probably come up.
Right.
And so, thank you.
Yeah. Hey, one more question. With the record of accidents there, you say that they're on, on the hold on, what is it,
344th?
344th is a through street, and the avenue has the stop signs on it.
Yep.
You know, would just simply making it a four-way stop, would that reduce accidents and take care of that at a greatly reduced cost?
I'll let our traffic engineer answer that one. I see him itching over here to come up.
Oh, I'll let Rick do it, but I was gonna jump in.
Okay.
Oh, you can if you
So Rick and Desiree, I mean, I just ask these things to hassle you guys.
Okay, no, that's fine. Because that kind of question comes up a lot. So the primary thing is, at an always stop, you're relying on other people to stop in order to come out. And we don't have 100% compliance. And what a roundabout does instead is it slows everybody down so that any impact that does occur is going to be basically a fender bender. Whereas, you know, actually the fatal collision was a result of drag racing. Now, if you're going to be driving 90 miles an hour on a road that's posted at 35, you're probably not going to worry too much about blowing a stop sign, especially when there's not very much cross traffic that usually occurs. So the fatality probably wouldn't have been prevented with an always stop, and in reality, it could have been a two-car collision. So in general, a roundabout is going to function more safely than an always stop, especially in a situation where the higher volume street is conditioned to not stop. I mean, it hasn't been an always stop before. Introducing it now, you're going to have a tougher time getting good enforcement. Always stops work best when all legs of the intersection have roughly the same volume, because there's always going to be an expectation that I do need to stop because there is going to be somebody on that cross street. When they're as imbalanced as they are here, which is about a 4-to-1 ratio, people get used, they might slow down for a while and as they approach on 344th, but not seeing anybody in the immediate vicinity, they're more likely to not come anywhere near to a complete stop. So that's why always stops don't always work. In addition, and I was going to mention this too, this intersection does have some sight distance restrictions between the landscaping and the walls on the north side of the street. And so one of the things that a roundabout does is because you don't need to see as far up the cross street, that we'd actually be saving more landscaping than we would if we tried to correct the sight distance deficiency. We'd be taking out a lot more landscaping.
Another question, semi-related. You know, I know there's very few new subdivisions going into the city now, but if and when a new subdivision were to go in, would we be taking a look at having it go in with more roundabouts rather than the alternative, just to prevent having to re-engineer things later on?
I encourage that. With designs, we don't always get the opportunity to do it. And, you know, we need a justification, call it nexus, to justify requiring something that in the short term is more expensive. So, so we would encourage developers to do that as a matter of course. To require it requires a higher threshold to be met.
With a you know, with a new development where you're working with a blank slate, how much more expensive would a roundabout be than just a regular intersection?
So it's mostly a matter of design. It actually usually has less pavement, which is the most expensive part. So, yeah, I mean, the cost difference with a roundabout compared to a regular four-legged intersection is mostly in the right-of-way and the design, because the design is more detailed effort. But on a clean slate, the right-of-way isn't that big a deal, although developer might disagree. Well, I lose 3 lots if I have to do a roundabout here instead of just a regular intersection. I'm just picking numbers out of the sky, so don't rely on that entirely. But just that incremental cost is a lot less, I guess I would say.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Any questions from out in, I don't see any. Is there a motion?
I can make a motion.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, I move to forward option 1 to the August 9th, 2022 consent agenda for approval.
I second the motion.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much, Omar.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to move down to item D, Redondo Creek Culvert Replacement 30% Design Report.
Oh, I'm still sharing, okay. Good evening. I am Ken Smith with the Public Works Department. I'm here for the Redondo Creek Culvert Replacement 30% Design Report. So the policy question is, should the City Council authorize staff to proceed with design of the Redondo Creek Culvert Replacement and then return to LUTC and Council at 85% design for further reports and authorization? And for a little background, this project is to replace a failed culvert along a portion of Redondo Creek near 16th Avenue South with a fish passable culvert and provide stream riparian restoration upstream and downstream as necessary, mostly for grade corrections. And this also supports the completion of the Pacific Highway Non-Motorized Trail Phase 2, which will go through the same location. So it's a little hard to see. It's a bit north of the park, and the high school is a little bit further south, but just off of Redondo Way South and just north of 509. So in this picture, I believe north is to the east, or to the right of the picture. Redondo Way comes down this way, and then the culvert is just off the road in this utility strip. That there's a utility access road that runs kind of adjacent and acts as a 16th Avenue South right away. So we'd be replacing that culvert with the fish passable one, and the Pacific Highway Trail would come down along Redondo and then onto the access road just over the culvert. To date, we have completed the survey. They have a draft critical areas assessment, and the project's completed up to 30%. And now we're working on utility coordination, the preliminary contract specifications, and getting to 85%. For the financial summary, let's think about this. Right now, I estimated expenditures, we have design at $300,000, construction costs around $570,000, and then with contingency, 57, construction management inspection around 173 to get us to 1.1 million. And we have, in the 2020 approved budget, there's 300,000 for this project, and the 2023 approved budget, there's 850,000 for 1.15 million of available funding. And then at 85%, we'll refine that cost a little bit better so that we have a better idea of what the actual will be. So the policy question, or options considered. Option 1, authorize staff to proceed with design of Redondo Creek culvert replacement and return to LUTC and council at 85% for further reports and authorization. Or 2, to do not authorize staff to proceed and then provide direction. Mayor recommends forwarding option 1 for the August 9th, 2022 City Council consent agenda for approval. And I'll answer any questions.
Councilmember Walsh?
Yeah, could you go back to the maps again? I'm just trying to
Yeah, it's a
Get a
little
grasp of
bit
exactly where.
hard to get an
Let's go to
idea
the,
of it.
okay, so this one here, all right,
So I moved Sacagawea Middle School is
yeah,
just
yeah,
off
I know
99.
I know the general area well. I'm
Okay.
just trying to get the specifics.
It's a little hard to see if you go down Redondo Way.
So it's right
past
behind the
gas
Shell station?
Yeah, it's right behind the Shell station.
So-
There's an empty lot, and then the road starts to curve, and I think just as it curves, there's a little kind of driveway, and that becomes the location of the culvert, and that's
Okay.
the same location as the trail.
So where does Redondo Creek go upstream from that?
So upstream, it actually goes, goes through the culvert. There's a little bit of open space, and then it goes underneath through another culvert. And then, I believe that is actually a state's culvert. And then there's a bunch of tanks.
Underneath 509? Or underneath Back Highway? Or
So it's
under-
in the shoulder. I'd say it's more off the road in that location. And then it actually goes under 99, and then eventually gets to.
Or 99, that's what I meant.
Yeah, it goes under on the side of Redondo Way, and then under 99, and then around, and eventually goes to Steel Lake.
Okay, so it actually goes to Steel Lake then?
Yeah, there's a bunch of wetlands in between that it kind of flows through, but the stream really gets defined at this point where the culvert is.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Didn't know there was a trail there.
It will be there.
Oh, will be there, okay. Okay, any other questions? Seeing none out there, okay, motion, please? Or do you have another
No,
question?
no.
Okay,
Mr. Chair, I move to forward option 1 to the August 9th, 2022 consent agenda for approval.
I second the motion.
okay, it's been moved and seconded, all in favor, say aye. Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. We'll now move to 2022 Neighborhood Safety Program revisions. You got great initials, JFK.
I don't know where to put this. There for now.
Good evening, Chair and council members. Thank you very much for letting me present tonight. I am Jason Kennedy, Senior Traffic Engineer in Public Works Traffic Division, and I'm presenting on our proposed changes or revisions to the Neighborhood Traffic Safety Program. So the policy question before you tonight is, should the council approve the proposed revisions to the Neighborhood Traffic Safety Program? And I will give you a little bit of background, a little history that we kind of leads up to where we are tonight. So the current NTS program has been in its current form for almost over 9 years at this point, last update in 2013. So council had requested us to update the NTS to address available funding, especially in light of the budget cycle and project implementation per location and neighborhood. And then staff, Public Works Traffic staff was in the process of reviewing the program, accessibility and technical criteria. And so the revisions have been requested again, in light of the budget consideration for the August 22 council meeting. Now, the proposed revisions address both equity access as well as technical engineering revisions. And I'll get into that in a little bit more detail here. So as part of this whole revision process, we wanted to make sure that we included various channels of, for input, and also externally providing outreach opportunities. And so as part of that, we worked with the city's diversity, equity, inclusion analyst as we started the process. to make these revisions in light of the equity access component. And so, and as part of that, we also presented to two groups recently this summer. One was the City Korean Community Quarterly Meeting, which took place on June 30th at City Hall, as well as the Diversity Commission on July 13th. In addition to those already, those previous meetings, we also hope to be able to present at the upcoming African American Black Community Quarterly Meeting, which is this week at City Hall. And then we will also be coordinating with the DEI analysts for other meetings, other community members, groups. And then on top of that, we'll also be, when we get this completely finalized, assuming approval of council, we will be developing a user-friendly brochure that's going to be translated into the major languages of Spanish, Korean, Vietnamese, Russian, and of course English. So we'll just get right into the meat of the presentation here, which are the major proposed revisions. Now, as part of the packet, you got the revised draft, which includes minor things such as type, grammar and other things, but the major core policy changes are what I want to highlight here, which are in this table. And let me try to move this out of the way here. This is going to be kind of hard because I don't have a whole lot of room. So I'll get started just kind of coming from the top down. So one of the things that we looked at in terms of from an equity access standpoint was how a traffic study or how an NTS project gets implemented, it gets started, the process. And one of the components that we have in the current program is a petition that's required to be signed by at least 10 residents in the area of interest. And so we feel like that was potentially a barrier for access and for certain groups, certain residents of the city. And so what we've decided to propose is changing it to remove that petition requirement and allow essentially any communication of a concern related to speeding, such as a phone call, letter, email, that sort of thing, to initiate the process. The next major category or item in the policy change that we're proposing is what makes it eligible, what makes a project eligible. So, we currently have a requirement to, once we do a traffic study, to meet a criteria of a point score of 3.0 points to qualify for moving forward. And what we'd like to see is, when it comes to speeds and traffic safety, one of the kind of traditional outlooks on how to address it is kind of the traditional 3 E's: engineering, enforcement, education. And I think that those are really important aspects, and they work together as a group, as a combined effort. And so we want to make sure that we include the education and enforcement components a little bit more in the process. And so what we're proposing is to kind of have a more documented 90 days of targeted enforcement and education, showing that there is no speed reduction based off of those components, and then a resulting score of the traffic study of being at least 3 points. So that's all 3 components of what I was talking about: enforcement, education, and engineering. And Public Works would like to see, we would absolutely like to see more emphasis on the enforcement and education, of course. And so that's our hope, is we'll see that commitment. And then the third one is technical criteria. So currently, we score our traffic studies based on 85th percentile, volume, Location, if it's fronted by if the street is fronted by a school or a park, and then the collision history. So we're going to keep all those, and then we're going to add an additional criterion, which is sidewalk, whether it is existing sidewalk or walking path there on that street. And again, the thought that, if speeding is a concern on that street and people are having to be forced to walk in the street because there's no sidewalk or walking path, that increases the chance of them potentially being hit in the street. And so that's the third item. Fourth one is basically how the process starts is on a first come, first served basis right now. So, we start January 1 as the beginning of the year for which our NTS program, budget counts towards. And as a project comes in, we process it, and we come to you once, if it does meet the criteria, we come to LUTC again and propose the project, and then council approves. Of course, construction doesn't typically take place until the summertime, but whatever the order it comes in is when it happens in the construction season. What we're proposing is now that all the projects will be, scored and processed, but they won't be moved forward to a decision of whether or not they're going to be funded or presented to the council until at the end of the year, once they will be all eligible projects will then be ranked in order of severity and implemented within the available funding. And as part of that, we'd like to have geographic equity as consideration when we prioritize the projects. And again, that goes back to the equity and accessibility aspects of making sure that the entire city has the opportunity, if there is a concern about speeding, that someone who happens to not mention it until June or July, when all the money's already accounted for earlier in the year, that there's that opportunity to be equally considered. The fifth one is something more of an engineering and operational issue. We currently allow all vertical deflection measures on all types of roads, but what we would like to see is, due to a variety of things, partly being snowplow issues and other such things, emergency response, not allowing vertical deflection on principal collectors without the public works director's approval. And then the last one is neighborhood restrictions. So currently, neighborhoods can receive up to $15,000 worth of improvements or speed management projects in 1 year. And if somebody, if a neighborhood group comes in and wants to do more than that, then typically they can then put into a project, and then it will get rolled over into the next year, and then that money could potentially be for the budget could be taken up. So what our thought is that we'd like to see neighborhood, which we classify as a school enrollment area, cannot receive more than one speed management project every 3 years. And again, that hopes to spread out the projects to a wide range of neighborhoods that might be wanting to have something done in their location. So I'd like to just make a couple comments on some other things that we mentioned. I mentioned a little bit earlier. So, like I said, the policy is going to be translated into 4 different languages plus English. In addition to the outreach I mentioned earlier with the meetings, we'll be doing social media, blasts out as we, get this rolling assuming it's approved by council. And then traffic and others will be, increasing our outreach to the community, at maybe HOA meetings or neighborhood gatherings, that sort of thing, where we can to help get the word out about this program. Because to be honest, a lot of people don't even know about it. It's on our website, but beyond that, there are communities that may not use the website or have really knowledge of this outside of maybe Public Works coming to present. So that's kind of our hope. So in terms of the budget concern, I mentioned that earlier as kind of one of the reasons why we're trying to, get this into the August council meeting, is that currently we have a $50,000 annual budget. As I mentioned, we're trying to improve accessibility and equity, and that whole purpose is to increase potential community participation. With that, having said that, we do anticipate that there's possible additional staff time and resources likely due to potentially increases in requests. And so that's kind of where the budget request came in, and in terms of how we're handling that for 23 and 24, and that's what that would intend to address potentially, that increase in staff time and resources. So the options considered ahead of you are option 1, approve the proposed revisions on the NTS program, or option 2, do not approve the proposed revisions and provide direction to staff. And the mayor's recommendation is to forward option 1 to the August 9th, 2022 City Council consent agenda for approval.
Councilmember Walsh, do you have a question?
Yeah, could you go back to the, keep going back, yeah, there, all right, okay. With this, I mean, overall, I like it, but I do have a few questions. One is, it seems like on that first point, changing how you decide whether to do a traffic study, it seems like that would be where the budget concerns would be, correct?
Yes, that's the majority of the issue, is that we would see more potentially, more studies that we would have to conduct, because it wouldn't require the effort that a petition would require, neighborhoods to do.
What kind of increased budget do you think that would require?
I'm gonna punt that to my supervisor. It's above my pay grade.
Well, this is of course subject to mayoral approval to have the council review that, but our budget request was for increasing it from $50,000 per year to $250,000 per year.
Substantial.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's mostly because of that, the way that they would be.
We would anticipate more requests, and we would anticipate approving more requests, which is, because the construction is really where most of the money is spent, but there would also be increased staff workload that would need to be addressed, both with respect to the data collection and the analysis.
I mean, I have no problem with the increased budget for more, to accomplish more projects. However, it does seem like that, if every phone call or complaint of any kind you're having to do a study, it seems like that could be stretching staff time on things that really don't merit staff time. And so I have a concern with that point. So going on down to the fourth one, the implementation and construction speed with first come, first serve versus once per year. I mean, I like that, but my one question is with it doing once per year, it would be collected over the year and then put off. Would that be delaying some things an inordinate amount of time?
Well, I mean, in terms of first come, first serve, that's just a matter of when the order in which they come in. We would still, if something came in January 1, it's going to still be considered at the end of the year, whether or not if something came in on December 31st or whatever the date that we decide to make a review.
But basically, my question is, if something came in January 1, the problem may be addressed and the construction take place that summer. However, if it came in January 1, it might not be addressed until the summer of the following year. And that's where I like the idea of it, but is it creating some unneeded delays also?
Well, so once we get whatever the date in which we decide is our end date of acceptance for that year, and then we have a review process of all the projects that came in from January 1 up to whatever the date is, they would all be considered at that same time for then the following year. So they would all have the equal potential for being constructed at the next opportunity. So the next opportunity would be the following summer, for example. The exact date has not been, determined internally for what that would be, the review date. But whatever that is, they would all be considered at that same time, so they have the equal opportunity to be then go forward to construction, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I follow that, but I'm just saying that it seems like that there could be a project that could be delayed clear a year longer than what it would be otherwise. And I see Rick is,
So, yeah, I would just point out briefly that typically it takes us a year to get from petition to construction.
okay.
So I wouldn't see this as a huge impact. Yes, there would definitely be some people that, might have been able to get it within 8 months and now they have to wait a year. But in the grand scheme of things, as you note, it does tend to level the playing field a little bit more too.
Okay. And then next on the item under that vertical deflection measures, for the layman out here, which all those people who are watching this at home and for myself,
Sure.
what the heck is a vertical deflection measure?
Okay, so typically in traffic, speed management and traffic calming devices, there are typically two major categories, horizontal and then vertical. So anything that would make the vehicle have to deflect vertically, so up or down, correct?
So a speed hump or speed bump is a vertical
Speed bump,
deflection
correct, raised
measure.
crosswalk, those kinds of things are what would be considered a vertical deflection.
Okay, all right.
So a traffic circle, chicane, other items like that, those are horizontal deflection.
Okay, all right. Okay, yeah, I mean, I just have a problem with that first one with it. It seems like that it's opening things up too much. Everything else, I think it's great and it's an improvement.
If I can jump in, Councilmember Walsh, I know there is a concern about that, but I came from a jurisdiction where this is more typical on how it worked, that, someone should be able to make a simple phone call, right? Or email and say, hey, can you come and look? Because I think I have a speeding or a cut-through problem. And, we would basically gather them all up and be more efficient with it. We wouldn't go out and do the speed study immediately. We would do, 1 week a month that we would collect the ones from the previous month. And we would go and set I think at the time we had maybe 7 or 8, tube studies that we could conduct at one time. And it was very rare that we had to, push somebody out, to the next month because we didn't have enough equipment. So we'll keep an eye on it. And definitely if it becomes a little bit out of control, we'll have to maybe reassess. But, I think, based on what I see in terms of calls that come in already through either See-Click Fix or calls, I think this is something we can manage.
Okay, so, I mean, if there's a call that is, kind of obviously a frivolous type call, I mean, will staff have the discretion to use some judgment on it?
And it may be that we've done previous studies there before, that it, never panned out. The other thing, when I was working with the other jurisdiction that we had was, we worked with the traffic division of the police, and they had a community service officer. And the community service officer would go out and vet the complaint first. In fact, he had his own little, radar, gun that he would go out various times a day, and he would go and kind of proof to see if there was some issues. After that, then we would go and conduct the speed study or determine maybe it was a special circumstance, like it's the summertime and the teenager moved home down the street and it's that one teenager that goes the same time every day. And so we had a really great relationship. I'm hoping that that we can have a similar relationship with our police department to help us with some of this enforcement and education component.
Okay, thank you.
I guess I have a comment along the same line as Councilmember Walsh. I understand this is a safety issue, and when people call, we want to be on it right away. But it's also a neighborhood issue. If someone moves into the house next to where, I mean, the new neighbor moves in and they say, hey, there's a problem, and the other 25 neighbors on the street say, what problem? Then we're kind of pitting neighbor against the group, or it seems to me, how do I explain this? It seems to me that if you have a neighborhood that there's an issue and more than one person understands an issue and they come to the city as a group, it's a lot stronger support if we're going to put a speed hump in somewhere. And by just having somebody make a call, we're saying, oh, we're at your beck and call, we're going to be there tomorrow. And the expectation might be we're going to do something where we don't have the funding or it's not an issue. And I think that's why back in the day when, I think Skip Priest was the one who actually brought this in back in the day, right, Rick? And it was more to bring the community together. Of course, it was for safety instead of just one person that doesn't like the yellow cat in front of their house or whatever it is. I don't know. It just, so
Yeah, and the process that and see, these were the the 6 major changes. Everything else that we currently have in the NTS is gonna stay the same, and part of that process still remains is, we do have a public comment, public meeting process that is a part of it. So once the traffic study were done and we're able to, determine that it resulted in a score of 3 and all the other criteria, the enforcement, the 90-day enforcement education, we then would have a public meeting with the neighborhood group or where we publicly advertise. We have boards that we put out. We let people know that we're going to have a public meeting to discuss speeding or whatever in your neighborhood. And, we do it now virtually on Zoom, but, we used to do it at elementary schools or whatever. But that's something that, as part of the process, it's still going to stay. So we still want to get that consensus. I agree with you, sir, and the consensus process is definitely important. That's going to stay.
Okay. I didn't realize
Yes.
that.
Oh, yes, Rick brought up a good point, and the balloting process. So the balloting still will remain as well. So after the public meeting happens and we agree as a group, and that means the public, works traffic staff plus, fire plus the citizens. Once that's agreed on whatever it is and we vote for it, and we agree to that verbally, we then have a ballot process which goes out to all the addresses along the street in question. And there is a voting process which they have to still meet 51% or above to approve. So there is still a consensus process involved.
And then one last question on the neighborhood restrictions. It used to be 15,000, and now it's once every 3 years, but the dollar amount has been changed. It could be a $50,000 project that we were carrying over 3 of them at a time. So now we're just making it so we could fix the problem with the bigger budget and not having to do multiple year 15,000. Is that correct for the change?
Yes, exactly, yeah.
Okay. Any questions out there on the computer? Seeing no hands.
My hand's raised.
Oh, there. Go ahead. You're not on the screen. Do you have a question there, Lydia? Is that you?
I do.
Thank you. Go ahead. For some reason, there you are. Now they
Sorry.
expanded. Now I can see.
My apologies.
Okay.
Thank you so much. So one question I have, I have 2 questions here too. So one is with the eligibility, when you're talking about education, I know you talked about flyers and information in the different languages, but what is the education about? Is it, so what does it entail?
Yeah, and so the education component is something that is, again, it's part of the process that we like as, from engineering standpoint, to be a part of the solution. So if we can, through either targeted enforcement or education or engineering or all, the combination thereof, figure out whatever the issue is and solve it, that's great. If education can do it alone, then that's why we have, all three components as part of this. So education would be something where we look at, having a radar feedback sign, say, posted in the neighborhood. Police have trailers that we can have, put out, and it gives feedback to drivers, and it's an education component where some people may not even realize they're speeding, to be honest. And so having that feedback to them may get people to slow down. There are other ways, like HOAs have newsletters, for example. HOAs, not every neighborhood has HOA, but those that do could put a newsletter article to their residents saying, hey, we've got a speeding issue in here in the neighborhood. Watch your speed. There's, it's a safety concern, that sort of thing. So there's other components. Those are kind of the major ones that we have typically seen or used in the past. But that's kind of an example of what the education component is, to get the word out. Hey, speeding's an issue. You need to slow down for safety.
Great, okay, thank you.
Okay.
And then my other comment is, we got a roundabout built in my neighborhood, which is great. It's better than the stop sign. However, it didn't have any kind of vegetation, and I did ask this, but one was about, one reason I was told was about maintenance. And personally, I've seen it where it's just, could be low vegetation, but it really aesthetically looks really good. And so I just want that to be considered as part of the build. And a roundabout is built in a community. Just gives it this really nice feeling about having vegetation there. Thank you. Unless, unless you have something you want to respond to that.
Sure. So when we first proposed the traffic circles, they were just curbing in the middle of the intersection. And actually, the first time I brought that up to the council, which was like 1998 or something like that, you can do them expensive and beautiful or cheap and not so beautiful. And at that point, the council chose to not do them at all. And then later on, it was decided that we did need another tool in the toolbox. And what really got it going then was neighbors that were volunteering to install and maintain the landscaping. And but that can present another obstacle for lower income neighborhoods, or those that don't have the capability of being there enough to maintain that. And it also tends to be a concerted effort. So we had done some experimenting with that, where the neighbors were committing in a contract with the city to actually do that maintenance. And but at some point, that agreement is going to expire. And and there was no really way to transfer the responsibility to new property owners in the area. And so then it defaulted back to the city to maintain that. And we didn't really have a set aside budget for that increased workload on the landscaping. So that's why we have stopped doing that. The council could choose, as part of this budget increase, to say, take some percentage of that or increase it further even to handle that increased landscape maintenance workload as an option. But we hadn't gotten into that level of detail on that, but it's a valid question.
Great. It just looks nice, and a lot of people know Federal Way for its beauty, for its greenery, so it just adds character. And I think if it's low-growing vegetation, that doesn't need a whole lot of maintenance, I hope. I would really support it, or if we have some kind of a neighborhood grant or something that we could probably come up with at some point, I think that would be great. So thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for the presentation. Do I have a motion?
I move to, just a second, let me get to it. I move to forward the proposed, oh, I move to move option, I'm trying to find it here, just a second here. I move to forward the proposed option 1, approval of the proposed revisions to the Neighborhood Traffic Safety Program to the August 9, 2022 consent agenda for approval.
I'll second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Yes. Good evening, everyone. Yes. So again, I'm Kent Smith with the Public Works Department, the City Sound Transit Liaison. And this is some updates on the progress in Federal Way. So for the Federal Way link extension, so as far as north of 317th Street, we've got wall construction, column work, and utility work, basically along the guideway, various sections along I-5, so everything north of 317 through the city. And they are doing deck work for the girders that were just installed over South 288th Street. For the city center, they have put girders over Southwest 320th Street, and they'll be working on the deck work as well in the next few weeks. We'll see when that will happen. Utility work along 21st Avenue is ongoing. They're doing water, dry utilities with estimated completion date around the 4th week of August. And that's just utilities, and I believe some of the sidewalk work. They still have more roadway work to do. They're working on the construction of piles at the garage expansion. If you drive by, it's open. You can see quite a bit of it. And they've got early station work underway for plumbing and electrical, pretty minor stuff, and working on the stairs and the escalators for the station. And as far as 23rd and 317th, they are planning on utility crossings in the second half of the year, but that's dependent on when they finish the work on 21st, because we can't have them have both roads closed at the same time. For the O&F South building, no real updates since the last meeting. However, Sound Transit and city staff did meet in person in July to confirm some major design requirements and kind of go over our concerns of basically some of their alternatives for a specific set, which is at the Christian Faith Center. And then I don't have anything as far as updates for Tacoma Dome Lincoln Section. The draft environmental impact statement was expected in spring 2022, but we don't have a firm timeline on when they actually will release it for public comment and review. So, but we do have an expected, I think at the end of August or the 3rd week of August, we're looking to do another sort of in-person review with the city and Sound Transit staff to go over the same thing we did with the O&F South building as far as one of their alternatives, and just kind of give them our preferred options and our concerns. So that's all I got. Any questions?
Any questions from outside there, Lydia or Linda? Seeing none?
Thank you.
Oh, there's one. Go ahead. You have a question?
No, I said no, thank you.
Okay. It's hard to see, this camera, you can't see if their hand's raised, but anyway, thank you. Hey, thank you very much for the report. We will now adjourn our meeting unless you have any other things to address us with.
Oh, I think that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you all for spending the time, and we will now go into recess and adjourn. Thank you.